Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're going to be talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame today.
Specifically the 2025 nominees.
Yeah, it's always exciting to see who makes the cut, and who maybe gets snubbed.
Oh, definitely. This year's list is particularly interesting. We've got some,
The good mix, right?
yeah, a real mix of first-timers and some familiar faces who've been hoping to get in for a while.
Well, let's dive right in. We've got some heavy hitters making their first appearances here. Bad Company,
Those guys.
known for that bluesy hard rock sound.
And of course, the Black Crowes bringing that southern rock grit.
Oh yeah, they were huge in the 90s.
And then there's Joe Cocker, a true soul and blues legend. I mean, that Woodstock performance
Iconic, right?
absolutely cemented his place in music history.
It's really cool to see such a diverse range of artists all vying for a spot in the hall. We've also got Billy Idol
Oh, the punk-turned-pop icon.
and Chubby Checker. Can you believe it?
The twist. I mean, talk about a dance craze that swept the nation.
And the world.
His nomination's interesting, though, don't you think?
Yeah.
It really raises questions about how we define rock and roll these days.
Absolutely. Does it have to be guitars and drums? Or can it be something like...
Something that has such a huge impact on pop culture.
Right. It makes you think about how the Rock Hall is adapting in the 21st century.
And speaking of pushing boundaries, we can't forget about Mana.
The Mexican rock band.
Huge international success, singing primarily in Spanish.
Shows you the global reach of rock music.
Absolutely.
And then we've got Outkast, bringing that fresh sound to hip-hop.
They blended so many genres. Southern soul, funk, even psychedelia. They weren't afraid to experiment.
And they earned critical acclaim and commercial success. What do you think their chances are?
I think they're pretty high. I mean, Outkast's influence on music is undeniable. They really helped to redefine what hip-hop could be, and their music still holds up today.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the returning nominees who are hoping to finally break through this year.
Some of these names might be familiar.
Yeah, we've got Mariah Carey, who sparked some debate last year about whether pop divas belong in the Rock Hall.
Yeah, her nomination brought up some interesting questions, like, what are the criteria for rock and roll? Is it just about musical style, or does cultural impact play a role?
It's a tough one. I mean, Mariah Carey has had a massive impact on pop music and beyond, so...
Definitely something to consider.
Then we've got Oasis, Britpop giants, known for their anthemic rock.
And their notorious brotherly feuds.
They were huge in the 90s, but still haven't made it into the hall. Maybe this is their year.
Possibly. And how about Joy Division New Order? They've had a lasting impact on alternative and electronic music.
It's like 2 nominations in one, right?
Exactly. You've got the post-punk sound of Joy Division with Ian Curtis's haunting vocals, and then New Order rising from the ashes with a more electronic and dance-oriented sound.
Really interesting. And we can't forget about Cyndi Lauper, another pop icon who broke barriers and challenged norms.
Her music has resonated with so many, and she's still a powerful voice for the LGBTQ+ community.
Then there's the White Stripes. They brought back that raw, bluesy rock sound in the 2000s.
And Jack White's guitar work was so unique, they really stood out.
Yeah, they did. And lastly, we have Soundgarden, back on the ballot for the 3rd time.
One of the key bands in the grunge movement, and their music is still incredibly powerful.
What do you think? 3rd time's the charm.
It's tough to say. They definitely have a strong case, but the competition is always fierce.
So true. Well, before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's take a quick look back at last year's inductees, just to see if there are any trends.
Maybe we can glean some insights into where the Rock Hall is heading.
Yeah. We had a pretty diverse group with Mary J. Blige, Cher, Dave Matthews Band, Foreigner, Peter Frampton, Kool and the Gang, Ozzy Osbourne, and A Tribe Called Quest.
Quite the mix. Anything stand out to you?
Well, I think the inclusion of Mary J. Blige in A Tribe Called Quest shows that the Rock Hall is getting more open to recognizing hip-hop and R&B.
Yeah, and Cher, too. A pop icon.
Seems like the definition of rock and roll is becoming more inclusive.
Which I think is great.
It definitely makes predicting this year's inductees even harder.
Anyone's guess at this point.
It really is. But I have a question for our listeners.
Oh, let's hear it.
Of all the returning nominees, who do you think has the best chance of getting inducted this year?
Good question.
Leave a comment and let us know your predictions. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And while you're thinking about that, it's important to remember that the article we're discussing only focuses on the performer category.
Right. We can't forget about the other categories.
The Hall also recognizes individuals and groups in 3 other categories: musical influence, musical excellence, and the Ahmet Ertegun Award. That one's for non-performers.
Yeah. It's important to recognize the people behind the scenes, too.
Absolutely. They've all played crucial roles in shaping the sound, the business, and the evolution of rock and roll.
It's not just about the artists on stage, it's about recognizing the whole ecosystem.
The whole thing. And sometimes the contributions of these individuals can be even more impactful than the performers themselves.
So we've got our nominees, we've touched on last year's inductees, and we've highlighted those other awards. But the big question still remains. Who will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2025?
Well, we'll have to wait until the official announcement to find out. That's in late April. The ceremony itself will be taking place in Los Angeles sometime in the fall. But in the meantime, we can speculate and debate.
And celebrate the amazing diversity of artists being recognized this year. There's something for everyone.
Definitely. And that's what makes this so exciting.
It really is.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before the break, we were talking about how this year's Rock Hall nominees are really pushing the boundaries of what rock and roll even means these days.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see how the definition is constantly evolving.
For sure. So let's dig a little deeper into some of these artists and what their induction might mean for the Hall's future.
Okay, let's start with Outkast. They were truly groundbreaking in so many ways.
Oh, absolutely. They really challenged the conventions of hip-hop, both sonically and lyrically.
And they brought Southern hip-hop to the forefront. It's hard to imagine the music landscape without them.
Right. They weren't afraid to experiment, to blend genres, and they created something totally unique.
Their influence can be heard in so many artists today. It's crazy.
It really is.
I think inducting Outkast would be a major acknowledgement of just how important hip-hop is to the whole story of rock and roll.
I agree. It would be well-deserved recognition of their creative vision and their cultural impact. No doubt about it.
But what about someone like Billy Idol? He's kind of a bridge between punk rock and pop music.
Oh, yeah. Billy Idol. He was a master of blending that rebellious punk energy with catchy pop hooks.
He definitely had a look and a sound that were all his own.
For sure. He brought a raw, theatrical edge to MTV in the 80s.
And his music is still so much fun to listen to.
It is. You can't help but sing along.
I think his nomination shows that the Rock Hall is starting to embrace artists who crossed over into the mainstream without losing their edge.
Definitely. It's not just about staying underground. It's about pushing those boundaries and expanding the influence of rock and roll.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, Chubby Checker. The Twist was a worldwide sensation.
Oh, yeah. Everybody was doing the twist.
But is it really rock and roll? That's the question.
Right. It's a tough one. Where do you draw the line?
I mean, Chubby Checker might not have played guitar or written protest songs.
But he sparked a cultural revolution.
He brought people together through music and dancing. He broke down social barriers.
Exactly. And that's rock and roll in a way, isn't it?
I think his nomination challenges us to think about rock and roll as more than just a genre. It's a cultural force.
A spirit of rebellion.
A celebration of individuality. And Chubby Checker definitely embodies all of that.
He does. His induction would be a real nod to the power that music has to impact society.
Beyond just the music itself, it's about the movement.
The feeling.
The energy.
Okay, so we've talked about some first-time nominees. But what about those artists who are making a comeback on the ballot? Like Soundgarden.
Yeah, this is their third time.
They were such a force in the grunge movement, and their music has aged incredibly well.
They really have. I mean, Chris Cornell's voice was just
out of this world. Powerful and melodic.
Why do you think they haven't been inducted yet?
It's hard to say. Sometimes it comes down to timing.
Or how the voting body is feeling that year.
Yeah, who knows? But I think their chances are good this time around.
I hope so. They have a huge legacy.
A dedicated fan base.
It would be amazing to see them finally get their due.
Agreed.
Now, Mariah Carey's nomination last year caused quite a stir.
It did. It really pushed the boundaries of what we consider rock and roll.
She's a pop icon, no question.
Yeah.
But her influence goes way beyond genre.
And let's not forget, she's had some pretty rockin' moments in her career.
Well, for sure. Remember that collaboration with Old Dirty Bastard and Slash?
Talk about range. I think her nomination, whether she gets inducted or not, really makes us think about what belongs in the Rock Hall.
And those are important conversations to have.
They are. As music keeps evolving, so does our understanding of what rock and roll is all about.
And who gets to be a part of its history.
Exactly. These discussions help us appreciate all the different genres
and how they all connect.
And recognize the artists who broke down those walls and changed the musical landscape.
Okay, before we move on, let's touch on the non-performer categories again. They're so important for getting the full picture of rock and roll history.
I agree. These awards acknowledge those who maybe weren't on stage but played vital roles behind the scenes.
Can you give some examples of past winners?
Oh, there have been some amazing ones. In the musical influence category, Sister Rosetta Tharpe comes to mind.
Oh, yeah. A pioneer of gospel and electric guitar.
Her influence can be traced throughout rock history.
It's amazing how many artists she inspired.
Right. And then there's the Ahmet Ertegun Award for non-performers. That's a big one.
Who are some of the people who've received that award?
Well, Ahmet Ertegun himself was one of the first. He founded Atlantic Records.
Wow.
He helped shape the careers of so many iconic artists.
So it's not just about the music itself. It's about the people who help bring that music to the world.
It takes a village.
It really does. The Rock Hall recognizes that the story of rock and roll is about so much more than just the performers.
The producers, the songwriters, the engineers, the managers, they all played a part.
And they all deserve to be celebrated. Okay, we're back for the final part of our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame deep dive. We've talked about this year's nominees, the evolving definition of rock and roll, and the importance of recognizing those behind-the-scenes figures.
We sure have.
But now it's time to tackle a topic that always sparks debate: the snubs.
Ah, yes, the snubs. Who deserves a spot in the hall but hasn't gotten the nod yet? That's a big question.
It's a testament to the depth and breadth of rock and roll history that there are so many deserving artists who are still waiting.
So many.
So let's dive into that world of Rock Hall snubs and discuss a few artists that we think deserve a place among the legends.
Sounds good to me.
For you, who stands out?
Well, for me, one of the most glaring omissions is Iron Maiden.
Oh, yeah.
They're metal pioneers who have been selling out stadiums worldwide for decades.
Their influence on heavy metal is undeniable, and their fan base is massive.
Huge. Absolutely global.
So why haven't they been inducted yet? What do you think?
I think there's still a bit of a bias against heavy metal within the Rock Hall's voting body. It's a genre that's been misunderstood or dismissed by the mainstream for a long time.
It's true. Metal doesn't always get the respect it deserves.
Exactly. But hopefully, as the Hall continues to evolve and embrace a broader definition of rock and roll, Iron Maiden will finally get their due recognition.
Fingers crossed. Now, another artist who I think deserves serious consideration is Kate Bush.
Oh, Kate Bush, absolutely.
She's a true visionary, a master songwriter.
And her music has inspired so many artists across different genres.
He really has.
Her recent resurgence in popularity, thanks to Stranger Things, just proves that her music is timeless.
That's a great point. She's always been ahead of her time.
Pushing boundaries, experimenting with sound, challenging conventional notions of what pop music can be.
And speaking of groundbreaking female artists, it's astonishing that the Go-Go's aren't in the hall yet.
The Go-Go's, yeah, they were pioneers.
Pioneers of the American New Wave scene.
Absolutely. And they achieved mainstream success at a time when all female rock bands were incredibly rare.
They paved the way for so many women in music.
They did. Their music still sounds so fresh and vibrant today, too.
It really does. Inducting them would be a long overdue recognition of their contribution to both music and feminist history.
Agreed.
Okay, so we've got Iron Maiden, Kate Bush, and the Go-Go's, all strong contenders for future induction.
Strong contenders.
Who else would you add to your snub list?
Well, for me, it's a crime that Warren Zevon isn't in the hall.
Warren Zevon. Yeah, he was incredible.
His songwriting was brilliant. His lyrics were sharp and witty.
He had such a unique style.
He really did. Blending rock, folk, and literary influences.
Yeah, his songs were like stories, really well-crafted stories.
They were, with a depth and complexity that really set him apart.
He was a master storyteller, for sure.
And don't forget that dark humor. He wasn't afraid to get a little dark.
Okay, one more for the list. What about Sonic Youth?
Sonic Youth. Oh, yeah, they were pivotal in the alternative rock movement.
They had that experimental approach to guitar playing.
Noise rock pioneers.
They influenced so many musicians.
From Nirvana to Radiohead.
It's amazing how far their reach extended.
They never compromised their artistic vision.
And they always pushed the boundaries of what rock music could be.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored the 2025 nominees, debated the meaning of rock and roll, and delved into the world of snubs. What are your final thoughts?
Well, I'm excited about the future of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It seems like they're becoming more inclusive.
That's good to hear.
Embracing a wider range of genres and recognizing artists who might have been overlooked in the past.
It's about time.
It is. And the ongoing debate about who belongs in the hall just shows that it's still relevant. It sparks these important conversations about music history and cultural influence.
I think you're right. At the end of the day, it's a celebration of the power of music.
It is. Music that moves us, inspires us, connects us.
It reminds us that rock and roll in all its forms continues to shape our world.
And long may it continue.
Well said. That brings our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame deep dive to an end. We hope you enjoyed exploring this year's nominees with us.
And pondering the future of the Hall.
Remember, music is subjective.
It is.
Everyone has their own opinions about who deserves a spot.
That's the fun of it.
So keep listening, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.
And keep on rocking.
Absolutely.